We'll do some small talk, but then at least a lot of the things that we're doing now is actually gaining some traction because I'm finding more traction on YouTube than I'm finding on Facebook and TikTok and stuff like that. But welcome back. Here's myself, Gordon Watt from Boundaries and Brotherhood, and my co-host, my partner.
Dr. Keith Faircloth.
And today we're gonna do something different, guys. We mentioned last week we was gonna do a mini workshop, and today's workshop, for the reason that's when we streaming right here, it's gonna be titled "Reclaiming Self-Worth: Breaking Free from the Need of Outside Validation." Doc has been seeing some of these issues. It's been brought up. So I wanted to address this. And I wanted to say that how this might be contradicting or putting things in your head that to build your self-esteem, whether you're coming up on a problem, a situation, what's going on in the world. Maybe you lost your job, you lost your girl coming out of divorce, a lot of different things. And we want to help you guys, our audience, whether you're going to be watching this on YouTube, live on Facebook right now, on all these false beliefs and stuff. And this is what Doc is here for. Understand that a lot of the time, Doc, a lot of times he sees this in his practice, his professional practice, right? And if you need professional quality practice and you say the coaching is not getting to you, he's available also. But Doc, introduce the situation, reintroduce yourself, see what you're doing, and how does this affect a lot of different people?
Well, honestly, I know our audience is men, right? But I'll tell you the honest truth, this affects the entirety of the population.
Mm.
Men, women, children, just across the board. This fallacy that we need to seek outside validation for internal validation. And
Oh,
it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Right? But it's something we've been taught from a very, very young age. And that's just a quick intro before we really get into it. But it's really just the whole idea that we do all these things, right? Like if I'm good enough, if I perform enough, if I do something enough, then I'll be worthy. And the fact of the matter is, it just doesn't work that way. It never has and never will. A lot of people, I think we've talked about this in a previous video, will either do one of two things. They'll be super overachievers and have all this immense pressure to perform because if they fall off, they're going to lose all the love and acceptance and all their self-worth. They're going to lose all that, if they fall off. And then you have the people on the other side of the spectrum that doesn't matter what they do, it never seems to be enough. And they're both struggling from the same issue of seeking outside validation to validate themselves. So, we'll be going into detail about this, throughout this workshop.
how dangerous is basically outsourcing that self-worth that you were just talking about.
Oh, danger about it. Honestly, it's very dangerous because it affects every single part of your life. It's not compartmentalized to any one area. It'll affect your relationship with your wife. It'll affect your relationship with your kids. It'll affect your relationship with your friends. It'll do it at work. You can't escape it because wherever you go, you show up. You're there. So you
Mm,
can never escape yourself. So it can be very, very dangerous. Hinder progress. It can mess up your health. Obviously, your mental health is going to be out of whack. But you're going to create a lot of covert contracts where you feel that if you do enough, people should give you something. So sometimes there's even a sense of entitlement tied to it. Like, don't you guys see
nice.
my worth and my value and everything like that? Don't you see how much I do for you? Why don't you show me appreciation and things like that? And it's not saying there's nothing wrong with wanting appreciation, not appreciation so you could feel good about yourself, not appreciation so you can have some sense of worth or value, or there's some type of purpose for you, but it has to be given to you by others. And ultimately the most dangerous part of it is that you outsource all your power to everybody else. You give it to your kids, you give it to your wife, you give it to your boss, your friends. Everyone else now has control and power over your life, and they're stringing you along, at least in your mind, right? Because you're doing all these things expecting them with this expectation, right, that they're going to do something or give something back to you or build you up in such a way. And the crazy part is, even if they do, it still won't be enough. I think that's the thing. It's a pitfall. It's sinking sand. Like with that mindset of seeking outside validation for an internal reward, it just never, ever works. It doesn't work. So I think that's the danger behind it. You're on a hamster wheel running and you never get anywhere.
Never get anywhere. How's the
Mhm.
validation on that? How does seeking that validation undermine that self-esteem, and basically the fallacy or the bullshit that comes along with that. And how can we correct some of that? Because a lot of the times, even for myself, you want to seek validation throughout social media. Somebody's telling you, man, you're doing this great, this and that. It builds up your self-esteem, but sometimes it's a false narrative, right?
Yeah.
If somebody is unconfident already, if a man is unconfident, he don't know how to set boundaries, he's basically simping with the women and everything else and getting everything done, that false self-esteem can be really dangerous, right? Because how do you correct that? And like, or what are some of the steps somebody can take that you've designed to help in that situation?
So, I was watching this video. It came up earlier this week, and it was actually a video with Jay Shetty interviewing Will Smith. He said something so profound, right? He said, "You're seeking outside validation to improve your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself." It doesn't make any sense, right? The only way to improve your self-esteem is to improve how you think and feel about yourself. Nobody on the outside can do that for you. And so when you feel horrible about yourself and you go out and you're trying to seek validation from other people, you're not even going to a source that will actually make the problem better, that will solve that problem. You're not even going to the right source. It's like you run out of gas and you get water and put it in the gas tank. It's not a water tank, it's a gas tank. It's not going to work. Doesn't matter how much water you pour in that gas tank. You could overflow, you could put a fire hose in it. The car's not going to run because it's designed for gas. Just like your self-esteem is designed for how you feel and how you think about yourself, not what other people think about you. And that's what happens to a lot of people. You go out and you do all these things and you post pictures online. You see it all, women with their cheeks out, guys flexing money and cars and all these things like that. And, ooh, like me, like me, like me, all these likes. And that's going to make me feel good about myself. And it's like a dopamine hit. It
That's
feels good to
exactly
be
what it is.
desired, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be desired. Everyone wants to be loved, but it's not real. She knows
Hmm.
it's not real. Everyone knows it's not real. So those efforts to seek and improve your self-esteem from an outside source constantly fail. They constantly fail because your self-esteem was never designed or meant to be improved by other people, which is why even if you have a loving wife who pours in and talks about how much she appreciates you, how much she loves you, how great you are, you still feel like crap about yourself. You still feel like you're worthless. You still think you're not doing enough. You still think you're not perfect because it doesn't work. It's water in a gas tank. It's just not going to work. Only you can fill yourself with that gas, right? Only you can fill yourself with those words and that validation, changing how you think about yourself to start really seeing that change. And then once you start recognizing that, once you start building yourself up, the outside noise doesn't matter. I don't care if you're not my friend. I don't care if there's no likes. I don't care if you don't want to talk to me. It doesn't matter. I don't need your approval. I can walk into the room with anybody. We've talked about having that confidence. Self-esteem and confidence aren't the same thing, but they definitely correlate.
Right.
Usually with high self-esteem, generally have high levels of confidence. Some people can be confident, but not necessarily have high self-esteem. But we're not going to get into all that. But long story short, when you start changing how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you view yourself, then you're going to start seeing that, okay, well, either two things are going to happen. One, when your wife does start pouring into you, you're going to be able to accept it a lot better. You're actually going to feel the love and the appreciation, the gratitude she's pouring into you, right? And obviously not just her, but other people as well who are genuinely pouring into you with that praise and admiration. It's not, and again, here's the beautiful thing. You don't need it. It's just nice to have, right? Because then when it's not there, then guess what? You're still fine. Like, I don't need your approval, right? I don't need you to give me an attaboy or a pat on the head. I don't need that. I'm good for myself, right? I don't need you to put my name out there. I can take care of that myself. I know my value. I know my worth. I don't need anyone else to do that for me. So I'm cool on that. Like, you're good. Oh, you left me out intentionally? Not a problem, right? Not a problem. Because when I rise and do what I need to do, I don't have to say it, but,
Yeah,
so
basically.
long story short, to go into this, you really have to start thinking differently, right? You have to recognize that seeking outside validation is not going to help us. It's not going to make us feel better at all, right? There was supposed to be a switch when you were a kid instead of seeking outside signals to get your understanding of the world, there's supposed to be a switch where we switch from doing that to then having our own thoughts and opinions about the world, about how people treat us and things like that, right? We should be asking questions about, oh, well, it was always said like this, but it doesn't make any sense. Kids are great at this until they get shut down. So analyzing your life, okay, what were some of the things, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me just stop right there. Let me stop right there. You want to start changing how you think about yourself. That's
There
what
you
you
go.
want to do. But
Give us some
we'll get on to the
steps.
rest.
Give some steps, because you address the problems from all the stuff, the fallacy, the income, the looking at the lens of from a child, really good at that. As an adult, as a young adult, as a teen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the teen world, when we see with these at-risk kids, what are some of the things we can do? Because like I said, this style is gonna be like a workshop. What are the steps that we can take once you notice that? Because a lot of times we don't even notice we're doing that. You mean, like you said, a lot of times you say you journal. Carrie talks about journaling. She does journaling a lot, because they write down the things. What are some of the things we can do right now so that I can catch myself if I'm going down that path, right? Because we're trying to help other men, but you have all the answers. It's a matter of how do we correct it now?
Well, so the first thing is you recognize the fallacies, right? You have to understand that the efforts you've been putting in are not going to work. You got to understand that first. And the reason why I say that is because we as humans, we have a tendency, when we learn patterns, we don't change those patterns, even if they don't work, right? Especially if we're not aware of them. We'll just keep doing the same thing. You ever wonder why people get drunk and they're sick, but they're still drinking, and they're sick and they're still drinking, and they know they're sick, they know they got to stop drinking, but they keep drinking? You have to recognize first, they call it a motivational crisis when it comes to substance abuse. You got to have that motivational crisis where it says, hey, this is really bad. This is not working. This is not solving my problems. And if I continue down this path, it's going to be very destructive for me and those that I love in my life, right? So it's along the same lines. You have to recognize that you seeking after everyone to tell you that you're so great and that you're so awesome, it's not going to work. Even if you do get it, it's not, just recognize it's not working. The reason why this is such an important first step is because once you recognize what I'm doing is not working, the next logical step is I need to start doing what is working, because this does not feel good. It does not feel good to have that pressure of I gotta perform, I gotta perform, I gotta perform, I gotta perform. I gotta be the best, I gotta be the best, because only way I can receive love. And see, if I stop, if I fall off, then nobody loves me. Then we have to recognize that that is not healthy. You're going to burn yourself out. And you look at a lot of these people that are like that, what happens to them? They're on drugs, they're on alcohol, they have issues, they start getting into weird stuff. It gets bad on that end. And of course, you see a lot of the same stuff on the other end as well. So recognizing that this is an issue and that you seeking outside validation is not working is the first step. Right? That's the first step to solving this issue. The second step is identify where this went wrong, right? You
Okay.
weren't always like this. I know, Gordon, you were talking about people going on the wrong road. And to be honest, unless we're talking to like 5, 6, and 7 year olds, who's ever listening right now is already down that road. My
They're already
road,
in it.
you're down the road, you're in the town, you're at the pub, we're hanging out, we're talking, you got a
Yeah.
little residence here, working in, no self-esteem, town USA, right? Like you're already there. So you got to identify, okay, where did this come from? Right? Because again, we weren't always like this. Where did this come from? Where did I, and when and where did I start believing that I wasn't enough? Where did I
That's
get
deep.
this?
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's I don't want to say it's easy to find, but it's not hard to find, right? Because it starts when you're a child. Most of what you believe was formulated in the first 7 to 10 years of your life. The beliefs about yourself, others in the world, that's formulated then. So just take a trip down memory lane and go back to that time. How did your parents treat you? Were you recognized for your efforts? Were you given love even if you didn't perform? What kind of household did you grow up in? Were you in survival mode? Were you in the foster care system? Go back into your life and start analyzing where things went wrong. And I'm promising you'll be able to find those moments where it's like, dang, yeah, that's where I kind of gave up. That's where I started really seeking after validation. That's when, maybe you got in trouble in school a lot. A lot of times kids do that and we think, oh, it's just a bad kid. More often than not, it's a kid just trying to get attention.
Attention.
So
I
the
was
long
just about
story,
to say attention.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of these
Well
things
said.
like a lot of these things that you mentioned is 100% because it took me a long time to figure out. Like I just had this conversation with Andrea. Now, for a person that say didn't do time, is not in a situation, not in a halfway house, not in a drug program, putting himself in a bottle, in the dope, in the drugs, in the lifestyle, and everything else. For a normal person that's not down there, how would you solve that problem for them? What would some of the steps you would take besides those that they could take actionable steps to actually do the work to even get better?
So the next step after identifying where it came from is now you got to start confronting it. You got to
Oh, okay.
confront, okay,
Nice.
it came from maybe your father was very demanding, right? Very, very demanding. Let's say that was it, right? Your father's very demanding. And so nothing you ever did lived up to his demands, his
Standards.
expectations,
Yeah.
right? And so now you're constantly seeking him to say, good job, or I love you, or I care about you, but you never got it. So you kept seeking, you kept doing and doing and doing, right? Trying to be better and better and better and better. And so now you've learned the process that I have to keep striving and doing better because that's the only way to achieve love, you know? But the
Yeah.
problem is, because your father never gave it to you, there was never this level where it's like you got that nod or anything like that. Now you're seeking it. It's a never ending journey because nothing you do is ever good enough. You can make a multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar company and you will still feel like the little kid long time ago who was trying so hard for his father to say, good job, son, or I love you, son. And it just never worked. So now, no matter what you achieve, the belief has been set in your mind that it's never good enough. There's nothing you could ever do to be good enough.
And this
If
works
you,
for women also. You mean
yes,
women is big with this
yeah.
because I just told her about a story like no matter how much money I made, how much power I had, you know what I mean? It's you still seeking that validation. So it happened to me. It
Yep.
happened for the attention because nothing is ever good enough. Now, the only happiness I seek is from my two kids because the validation, when I look it through their eyes, and I told Andrew about this, all they want is attention. It's really so simple at what it is. And we create so much garbage out of it. And you seek it so much, whether it's social media, whether it's at work, you want to be the manager, you want to do this, you bringing shit home, all this stuff. You didn't get the attention at home because it was a different time. And how does, I mean, I hate to go sidetrack it off of this, but what do you recommend, say, if I was your client right now, right? What would I do after I recognize that? Do we speak the new belief? Do we change it? Do we have a worksheet? Do we have a, you know what I mean, something that we can use to practice?
So once you recognize the fallacy of outside validation, and then you identify the source of where your low self-esteem, where that comes from, right? Now, again, like you said, you want to confront it, right? You want to look at it and you want to confront it with objective truth, right? Objective truth. So, for instance, I can't get validation from the outside will not fix what's on the inside. That's an objective truth that cannot be argued. It doesn't matter where you are, what time in history, it does not change. That is an objective truth. And you start finding these other things you believe about yourself, right? Like, oh man, like nobody really cares about me. I'm so worthless. You know, combat that with objective truth. Well, is it true nobody cares about you? Ask yourself questions. That's a big part of this step. Asking yourself questions and really challenging these old beliefs that you had, because I promise you, negative beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, those things do not hold up well to scrutiny. The problem is, more often than not, we are not actually questioning our self-limiting beliefs. We're not questioning our negative beliefs. We just take it for what it is, and then we internalize it and make it a part of who we are. That's just who I am, as if we can't change. So you need to question that. They will not hold up well to scrutiny. Oh, my wife cares about me. I know that. My kids care about me. Start coming back with some objective truth that combats these lies that were created a long time ago that you've been holding on to. Go back and say, well, dang, should I have had to work? Should I have to work for love and acceptance and for worth? Should I have to work for that? You know, no. The objective truth. No, you shouldn't have to work for that. Your father, no matter how demanding he was, it's not, and him also say, I'm not saying you can't have expectations or standards for your children, but I'm talking about you got to be able to love your children regardless, right? That's an issue in and of itself. Why did I have to work to earn my father's love? You shouldn't have to do that. That's wrong. That's an objective truth. Kids should not have to work for their parents' love. So you see what I'm saying? Like you're now
Absolutely.
looking at it, you're confronting it. Don't be scared of it. Don't be scared to, sit there with yourself, right? You can do this. But just confront that and just say, no, that's not the way. That's not true. I used to have an issue with like speaking up and for myself and just kind of being a little bit more extroverted. And I tracked that back to a time when I was in second grade. Long story short, there was a time in second grade where something took place and I internalized that. I told a joke like 2 days in a row. The first day was funny, the second day it wasn't. And it was just the kids that were around that said it the second time, right? And I internalized that. Like I never wanted to open up and share anything again. If I would have had someone at that time to challenge that belief, you know, okay, well, were they really trying to be mean to you, or did they just share their opinion that it wasn't funny? Do do jokes that we tell over and over and over again, don't they start getting old? Don't they stop being funny? Isn't that happen with you as well? If I
Yep.
would have had someone to go and process that with me back then, I would not have been all so closed off
It affected you.
because it
It
affected
affected
me.
you deeply, deeply.
So, but that's an objective truth, right? Like I faced that belief that was created, right? Because negative beliefs and self-limiting beliefs are very fragile. They're very fragile. They don't because they're not based on truth. They're based on lies and old perceptions that aren't healthy.
Feedback, a different
Yeah.
process, a different type of encouragement. It's the same like a mailman that got bit by a dog. One might run away from the dog because he got bitten as a small kid. One's
Mhm.
going to pet it and show confidence because he had dogs growing up. Same exact scenario, two different outcomes. And it's the same with life and confidence and self esteem and all this other good stuff. Because I just wanted to say, like, what would have happened
Well,
if,
I think a better look at that perception would be like two people get bit by dogs, right? One person
right?
gets bit, the other
Okay.
person gets bit. One person then becomes scared of all dogs,
Yeah.
right? And then the other person recognizes that it was just this dog because this dog was mistreated or this dog was hungry, this dog made a mistake. And so they're able to isolate that one incident instead of generalize like all dogs
Mm-hmm.
are bad. Okay, that dog had something going on, but I'm not going to be scared of.
All
So that
dogs.
perception really comes into play. You could see the difference between, okay, I just got to look at this thing different. So you might look at your father, and maybe the reason why he was so stern with you and so demanding of you is because when he was younger, he wished his father would have done that for him. He would have been further along. Could be something like that, right? So again, you start reframing these things, or you look at them, you start changing your own history, right? You talk about time travel. This is legitimate time travel right here. You can literally go back, change those beliefs that were created when you were younger. It's going to now change your present, which is now going to change your future, right? So
Yep.
that's the third step of how to deal with this and how to process through it, right?
Yep. No, I
Like,
mean it makes total sense because I have a remember I showed you the sheet on how I reframed everything from that 4 steps. We
yeah,
have a sheet in a more in-depth workshop on how to reframe and to change the belief system so that you can have a better outcome and behaviors. And between what I have and what Doc has and everything else combined, there's no doubt in our minds that we can change, reframe, and change you on a path and direction to make you internalize your old beliefs. Because everything that you do can be changed. Anything that you are facing now can be reframed so it benefits you or whoever your family and everything else that might come your way. Let me ask you this now, Doc. What does it look like when you rewrite that narrative? The outcome. You know what I mean? When you put in the work, you did this reframing, you did the disbelief, you challenge the beliefs, you change it. What does it look like as a confident man with self-esteem?
well, it's going to look like whatever you set as new beliefs to put in place, right? So let's say again, like you're not seeking outside validation anymore. It's going to free you up, right?
Yeah.
So now you can speak your mind more freely. Now you can share your ideas. You could be wrong, right? You can challenge other people's ideas. You could actually start living life. I think you're going to have not just the self-esteem and feel better about yourself because that's another thing as well, because you're going to be able to advocate for yourself, get more of what you want, from others, more of what you want from life, more of what you want from work or your career, your purpose. It's going to open you up altogether.
Yeah, I was just
And
about to
think
mention.
of they're called limiting beliefs for a reason because they limit you, right? So you could think of those limiting beliefs as chains on your ability to reach your max potential, chains on your ability to create whatever life you want, right? Those are the only things that are keeping you back. That's why they're called limiting beliefs, right? They're there to limit you, to hold you back, like having a governor in a car. No matter how much you mash that, you're not going any more than what that governor allows you. Now, if you take that governor out and you have a V12 in there with a supercharger, yeah, you're going to be going a lot faster, a lot further. And that's what it does when you start reframing. That's when it does when you start changing your beliefs and you start identifying that and understanding that outside validation is not necessary. Let me tell you a couple of people who are not concerned about outside validation. And you may not like it or whatever, but like Donald Trump is not concerned about outside validation, right? Cardi B is not concerned about outside validation. Elon Musk is not worried about outside validation. Tyler Perry is not worried about outside validation. None of them, and all these people are what? At the top of their game. I'm telling you right now, if you are concerned about outside validation, it will be impossible for you to ever reach your max potential. And no matter how far you go, you will never, ever be at the top of your game. You will look around and you will see other people that are less talented than you, right? Definitely not as smart as you, definitely not as resourceful as you, just beating you left, right, and center. I'm not saying you won't be successful because some of you guys are probably successful, but you can't hold a candle to some of the people who have half the talent, half the intelligence, half the experience. Like you won't hold a candle to them. Why? Because they're unbound. They have no shackles on
Yeah,
them.
they put their head down, they go. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're seeking outside validation, you put shackles on yourself. For some of my friends, the ones that, because I used to be this way, you just put your head down, you just run people over because I didn't care about anything else. In that sense, that's how you have to be when you want to change, whether it's in your communication, in your business, in your relationships. I mean, you can have a give and take thing, which is I like that because you need to have other people's opinions, how they got there, how they got to come from, where they are in life. A lot of times, there's no way that you can have that without being some sort of in a way, to not care about other people's feelings. Now, I'm not saying be an asshole, right? I'm not saying the political views of anything else can change a lot of different things, but you look at all different people that have that. You mean, like you said, they might not be bright enough, but they go take some action. They don't have the shackles. The ceiling might be the floor for them. But I like that analogy of it, where is if you take off the governor of your life and how you look at things, you can go full throttle in anything that you do, right? You can have a validation in your sense because the validation you're going to think is whatever goals you set for yourself, right? That you want to do. When you quit, you quit. When you want to stop, you want to stop. Let me ask you this, Doc. I mean, what would be some of your closing encouragements going on with this style that we did today? Which is, I kind of liked it.
So before I go into that, I will say you got to make sure, hopefully people understand there's a difference between validation and, and engaging with others to get different ideas and perspectives, right?
True. True.
Validation is all about something that they do that builds you up, right? Or seeking the outside validation. Them doing something, saying something, or recognize something that builds you up. That's supposed to build up your self-esteem, right?
True.
So, yes, you 100% need to make sure you're taking other people's ideas and things of that nature, right? Of those who they have low self-esteem, but they also don't seek validation from the outside, but they also isolate themselves heavily. That's different. We can talk about that in another
Yeah.
video because that's a whole nother can of worms. And here's the crazy part. Those people still want to connect, but because of their beliefs, they have set it up in such a way where they cannot connect. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
they may bulldoze people to get to where they want to go and say they don't care about other people think, but they do,
But they
right?
do.
Yeah, they do, which is why they isolate because you don't want to hear about what people think about you. Long story short, we can get to that in another workshop. But as far as encouragement is concerned, I think it's important for you guys to understand that you don't have to be stuck.
Yes.
And a lot of you, I've seen this time and time again, where there's a lot of really highly intelligent people that then create complex scenarios for their situation to try to prove that, yeah, I'm not worth anything. But if you just stop doing that and then took your energy and put it in the other direction, right? Put it in the other direction of how I can be worthwhile, how I don't need outside validation, how things that happen, understand reframing, like take that same energy that you would take to make this negative narrative and make a positive one. Right? Because it's all about perspective. And also, don't be scared to self evaluate yourself and look at some of your own behaviors and how you're playing a hand in destroying your own self esteem. You know, sometimes we can act in ways because the beliefs we have, we can act in ways that causes people to not want to be around us, that
True.
causes us to
True.
put ourselves, like, you believe you're a horrible person, you believe you're trash, and so you act terrible towards people. And then because you act terrible towards people, they validate, right? This is when it doesn't work well. They validate the fact that you're a horrible person because you're acting like a horrible person, right?
True.
So you got to make sure that you're also checking your behaviors at the door and regaining your power and saying, okay, what am I doing? How am I playing a role in this whole scenario, right? What am I doing? What are the things I might do? Am I isolating myself? Am I being standoffish? Am I, not accepting the things that people are saying? Am I not accepting the things that I'm saying? Like, what parts of this scenario are you contributing to? Because that's what you have direct control over. And when you start once you start changing those behaviors, changing those thoughts, changing those habits and beliefs, then you start seeing things change externally as well. You're going to see your relationships get better. You're going to see your money grow up. You're going to see your friendships improve. You're going to see things get better at home. But just make sure you retain that power and change whatever behavior that needs to be changed in order to start moving towards the person you want to be.
Yeah, that's really a deep, deep encouragement thing. Guys, do we have a checklist or something like that that they could run down a list that we could give them maybe
We
one
can get
day, or
one too.
something that, because a lot of times the work that you have to put in yourself, you might need some guidance, some direction, a blueprint. Maybe we can put that somewhere in the files on the Facebook page, or give a PDF download for it. But guys, I just wanted to say this down below here, whether it's going to be down below here, depending where, pause the video, stop and scan the code, guys. Scan the code and fill out that survey to see where we match up, because at the end of this all, you have so many options to come work with us. You can take the replays, you can get free PDFs, you can get buy paid workshop books, right? We're going to come out with a collaboration book. You can have a workshop replays with us, or you can also work with Doc himself if you need that. Because at the end of the day, there's levels to this, right? Some people might just want to go straight to Doc. I need this therapy right now. Or sometimes you want coaching from two sides with special guests, or you want to read it on your own. But it all starts with scanning this code. And we do have a pop-up store called Pop. I think it's pop.store/boundaries and brother, where you can get. I just started putting in some free, not free, but some workbooks, ebooks, things like that. But I want you to scan the code, guys, because a lot of times we want to see where you're at in your journey of confidence, self-esteem, communication, working with other people, all of these things. And we want to start working with you. This is why we did this on the next one, on this side, workshop side, because I wanted to showcase what Doc brings to the table. And he brings a lot, guys. I mean, even it's just a matter of we don't have enough time in on this weekly things to get you where you want to be. But I want you to encourage you, find Doc, right? Find us on YouTube. We're all over social media. We have right now, since we started this channel, it's gone to organically a lot of time spent just to help men, right? We have Carrie that comes in from a female's point of view and what she does for her women and their husbands. But at the same time, we're going to start bringing in more guests. We just want to help you get to. So pause the video, scan the code with your phone, fill out that survey, or come visit us at the Pop Store. And do you want to end with anything, Doc? Because this has been a pretty intense one.
Yeah. So guys, just a quick review. Understand that outside of validation will never work for you. Understand the fallacy of that. It's a sinking pit. Second, identify where your old limiting self-deprecating beliefs, where do they come from? And again, generally are formed between the ages of 1 to 10. 1 to 10 is when it's usually created. So you can evaluate your relationship with your parents, close friends, and situations where you're around other authority figures where you develop those beliefs, right? The third thing's confront them. Confront all of those negative beliefs, those self-limiting beliefs. Confront them with objective truth, right? Confront them. Look at them, right? Reframe those situations. Look at them differently. Look at the people differently. Look at the situation differently. Reframe them. Recreate your past, right? You can do that through
Recreate it.
reframing. And then the last thing is you decide who you want to be, right? Not just enough to erase the limiting belief, but you got to put another one in there, right? If your belief before was I'm not worthy, then you need to replace it with I am worthy, and then you start putting in things in your life. What makes me worthy? Well, I have good character, I have a strong work ethic, I add value to
Mm.
everywhere I go, and you can give out the evidence of those things, evidence of your relationships, right? And then you start doing actions. What is a person who is worthy? How do they act? How do they respond? How do they talk? How do they move? How do they walk? What do they do with
I
themselves? And you
love it.
start using those behaviors and those actions, and you start becoming the person you want to be. And before it's all said and done, the very same person you wanted to be, you've become. And the old you is nothing but a distant memory. You'll be like, wow, I can't even believe I used to be like that. So
The
that's just a quick
old you is a
guys.
distant memory.
Yeah.
It's time to take that governor off.
Yeah.
I like that one. Hey, you gotta take that governor off for all these people that we help, Doc, because that one hit me hard. Once you take that governor off and you turn into a V12 turbo, twin turbo, kicking out 1200 horsepower
Yep.
to the tires.
Yep.
Oh, look, carries on here. Yes, a distant memory. See us next week. If you like this type of content, like I said, pause the video. If you want to watch this on YouTube, watch all the shorts. Scan the code, guys. If share this with somebody that might need to hear this to help them save themselves. Right. All right. My name is Gordon Watt. Aloha from Boundaries and Brotherhood.
Dr. Keith Faircloth. And guys, just make sure you take your life seriously.
Please.
No one
Please.
take your life more seriously than you can. So take your life seriously and make the right choice and do what you need to do in order to get the change that you're looking for.
Doc, where can they find you?
Yeah. I'm everywhere, man. Dr. Keith Fairclough. You type me in anywhere, pop right up. I am not hard to find. Promise you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Y'all take care.
All right. Let's end that one. Let's see what. Okay, perfect. I actually ended it right.